Americans for Fair Taxation presents the Weekly Chairman's Report, written by Steve Hayes, president of Americans for Fair Taxation, and recorded by Bob Paxton, a volunteer with the Florida FAIRtax Educational Association. And now, this week's Chairman's Report.
Hello, I'm Bob Paxton with the AFFT Chairman's Report for Friday, July 26, 2019. There was a recent report on how farm tariffs would be much less needed if we had a sane tax system, i.e. the FAIRtax. This report received some comments and questions. Now, one of the people commenting on this article was a farmer. He says he now has to keep extensive records to show his purchases and other expenses to determine if he actually made any taxable income. He thought the FAIRtax was a great plan, but if it resulted in more time and expense for him, then well, it just wasn't worth it to him. Like most Americans, he is very suspicious of anything from the government which is supposedly going to help him. Now, for starters, note that the FAIRtax was not conceived in the government. Instead, it was hatched by businessmen who were sick and tired of the tax system directing their business decisions. So, when they began work on drafting the first sales tax bill, one essential requirement was that the FAIRtax would have to be user-friendly for businesses as well as for the rest of us. Therefore, the good news is that the FAIRtax was developed to make things much easier for all business people, including farmers. Now, under the current income payroll tax system, if you're a farmer and you're producing a crop, you will need many things. To plant, maintain, and harvest a crop, a farmer needs seeds, fertilizer, workers, interest on crop loans, vehicles, fuel, tools, tractors, and many other items. Now, when it's time to calculate the amount of income to be reported to the IRS, the farmer's expenses are combined with any depreciation on farm equipment allowed for the year, and this provides a total of the expenses needed to produce the crop. These farm expenses are then subtracted from the amount of income the farmer received from the sale of his crop, giving him his net profit. The farmer must then report that net profit number on his tax return. But he's not done yet. The amount of his farm income is subject to the 15.3% Social Security Medicare taxes, and these taxes are payable even if no federal income tax is due. So to calculate his federal income tax, the farmer must confront and complete the 1040 personal income tax return form, almost always with the help of a paid tax preparer. Only then will the farmer know how much federal income tax he probably owes. And I say probably because no one really understands the Internal Revenue Code, and many deductions are very subjective, like what is and what isn't a business lunch or a business trip. If the farmer is challenged by the IRS, he will be guilty until he proves himself innocent. Now, often the farmer, like many taxpayers, will be coerced into paying an assessment from the IRS because it would cost more to defend the matter than it would to just pay the additional tax. Under the FAIRtax, though, life would be so much simpler. All retail purchases are subject to the FAIRtax. So if the farmer is purchasing items needed for growing his crop, that's not a retail purchase. The way the farmer establishes the items purchased are not subject to the FAIRtax is simple. The farmer applies for and obtains a certificate which can be shown to the sellers of these items. This allows the seller to record the certificate number and then sell the items to the farmer without paying the FAIRtax. If the farmer sells his crop to a distributor or directly to a grocery store, there's never a need to collect the FAIRtax because that is not a retail sale either. If the farmer sells part of his crop at a farmer's market directly to consumers, then he will need to register as a retail seller and collect and remit the FAIRtax on those sales. With the FAIRtax, there's no IRS, therefore there are no IRS audits. There are no federal income tax returns. There's no payment of Social Security and Medicare taxes based on farm income because Social Security and Medicare are funded through FAIRtax revenues, not payroll deductions. The FAIRtax is administered by the state sales tax organizations, not the IRS, and the FAIRtax will allow the farmer to more effectively and profitably compete with foreign imports and be more competitive on the world market when he exports his crop. Now here's some facts the swamp doesn't want you to know about. because all taxes of any kind are consumption taxes, meaning they reduce the amount the farmer has to spend on consumption for himself and his family. Now, there are two ways to tax consumption. One is pre-tax consumption. You do that by withholding the income tax and Social Security taxes and then allowing the farmer to consume with the remaining dollars. Or two, you collect the tax at the time of consumption. Under the fair tax, which is the only fair tax, by the way, the fair tax is levied when the farmer purchases new retail goods and services, not used goods. Due to the prebate tax credit, the fair tax is not regressive. Instead, it is very progressive. Now, under the income payroll tax, everything is pre-taxed. That means you are purchasing goods and services with after-tax dollars. For most of us, this means that we have to earn $1.25 or more to net the $1 after income payroll taxes. There's no distinction between buying new goods and used goods. Now, since we can only spend what we have left after paying those income payroll taxes, we tend to forget about the fact that we are spending after-tax dollars, and all of our retail purchases, both new and used goods and services, are actually taxed before we make the purchase. This means the swamp and their allies in Congress can effectively hide the true cost of the federal government. In conclusion, does the enactment of the fair tax and the elimination of the income payroll tax system mean that farmers and small business owners will automatically be more successful? Well, no, it doesn't really mean that, but it does mean that the burden that the tax system places on business operators will be considerably less. They should maintain good books and records in order to control their expenses and increase their earnings. However, business people, including farmers, will no longer be spending countless hours and paying tax experts to find tax benefits for them. Instead, they can spend that extra time and money on things that will actually improve their businesses and improve the lives of their employees and families. What motivates the swamp and their allies in Congress? Money. They will do anything if it means money in their pocket, even if they know that the rest of us are paying a huge price for their greed.
This has been the Weekly Chairman's Report, written by Steve Hayes, President of Americans for Fair Taxation. Check back every week for news and information about the fair tax, and learn why the fair tax should replace our antiquated federal income tax system. If you'd like to receive a copy of the Chairman's Report in your inbox every week, sign up at fairtax.org or bigsolution.org.